Hello and welcome to this webinar on programmatic access to Europe PMC. This is part of the series of webinars to access data at EMBL-EBI programmatically, titled Take a Rest from Manual Searching. My name is Maria Levchenko. I'm part of the team working on the Europe PMC project at the European Bioinformatics Institute. And I'm here today with my colleague Jyoti Katuri, who will be answering your questions in the chat box. Over the course of this webinar, we will introduce you to the Europe PMC API and show how to use it to search for, retrieve, and manipulate biomedical publication data from Europe PMC. We will start with an overview of the data available via Europe PMC and the tools we offer to access that data. We will then go on to focus specifically on the RESTful web services provided by Europe PMC. We will go through a couple of examples of where you can use web services to answer your scientific questions. We will then move on to the output of the RESTful API, the formats, different result types, and so on. We will discuss some of the common tips and tricks to make your search more efficient. And finally, we will show you where to find related information and how to get support if you need it. So let's get started with the basics. What is Europe PMC? And what can I use it for? Well, Europe PMC is an EMBL-EBI resource. It is a biomedical literature repository that is freely accessible to researchers around the world. It provides access to more than 32 million publications, including PubMed and Agricola abstracts, life science patents, and theses. As a partner in PubMed Central International, Europe PMC also provides access to full-text scientific content. Free full text is available for more than 4 million scientific publications. 1.5 million of those are open access. Their licenses permit reuse, for example, for text mining purposes, unlike full text that is only free to read. Apart from the literature itself, you can also find related information such as reference lists and cross-references between biological database records and the articles that they cite. You can also access biological terms and concepts that have been text mined from abstracts and full-text open access papers. Those concepts include gene and protein names, accession numbers, gene ontology terms, and so on. Finally, you can access author IDs for researchers with an ORCID record. ORCIDs, Open Researcher and Contributor IDs, are unique digital identifiers for researchers, which distinguish you from other scientists. ORCIDs help to disambiguate scientific authors with common names, such as Smith or Lee. Using Europe PMC, you can search for academic authors and their publications using an ORCID ID. All in all, as you can see, there is a plethora of data that can be accessed via Europe PMC. Before we go on to see which tools are available for you to work with this data, I just want to point out that on several slides there is a link to the web page with additional information on the topics covered. There are several ways of accessing data hosted by Europe PMC, and you can select the one most fitting to your needs. The table on this slide summarizes data types available for access with different tools. If you need fixed, pre-computed datasets, you can download data in bulk via the bulk downloads link to analyze it locally on your machine. However, in this webinar, we will focus on the programmatic ways of querying the live website. For that, you can select either the SOAP or RESTful web service. SOAP and REST each have favorable qualities and offer different methods to invoke a web service. We will not go into details here, and you're free to explore the benefits of either method. But for the purpose of this webinar, we will focus specifically on the RESTful API. However, there is a detailed section on the Europe PMC website providing guidance on our SOAP web service, as well as a reference guide. So if you feel that SOAP fits your purposes better, you can find all the relevant information at europepmc.org/SOAP-web-services. Note that there are two RESTful APIs, one tailored for accessing publications and one for grant information hosted in the GRIST database. GRIST contains data on grants awarded by Europe PMC funders, and you can find more details on the API description page. Now, coming back to the article's RESTful API, let's have a closer look at how it works and how you can integrate it into your own workflow. In general, an API is simply a set of rules for querying a database. REST queries are in the form of structured URLs. The response you get to the query depends on how you build your URL. You can select parameters to define the details of your query. The Europe PMC RESTful Web Service is organized in search modules for different request methods. Depending on the task you have, you can select an appropriate module. We will come back to this in more detail in a short while. Each module has its dedicated syntax and parameters that you can specify. Let's look at how a URL is constructed on a simple example. Here is a REST query. There are several components to it encoded in the URL. You can see the data provider, in this case the EBI, the resource that you're querying, namely Europe PMC, the tool that you're using, RESTful Web Service, the name of the module, in this example we selected a search module, as well as additional parameters, query and sort. This request translates into plain English as search Europe PMC for papers on malaria and sort the results list by time cited in descending order. You can copy and paste this URL into your browser to see the result. This is a REST interaction, even without any programmatic access as such, meaning there is no need for you to write a code or use a specific client. The parameters that you can parse differ for different methods or modules. Here's an overview of the methods available via the Europe PMC RESTful API. We present some of the modules on this slide. However, a comprehensive list, as well as additional information, such as specific parameters, can be found via the link at the bottom of the slide. Looking at the methods, perhaps the most important one is the search, which allows you to query the database for publications of interest. The citations module allows you to access articles that cite a given publication, whereas references provides a list of publications referenced by a paper of interest. You can retrieve information about biological database records citing a paper, access text mine terms, supplemental data, or the full text of the open access articles. As you can see, with Europe PMC, you have a lot of flexibility in the kinds of tasks you can perform. Let us now illustrate how RESTful Web Service can be used for literature research with a couple of simple examples. Let's say that you're interested in finding papers published on your topic of interest. In this case, we would like to find publications that focus on diabetes treatment. To do so, we will use the search module and construct our URL accordingly by providing our query and any additional parameters we want to specify. To enter our keywords diabetes and treatment, we will use the query parameter. It can be used for standalone terms or combinations of them. Type search terms separated by spaces in the URL. If we will now paste the resulting URL into the browser, we will get the list of results, even if we are not using a specific client for access. Here's what we would get. You can see the total number of hits for our query. The query itself, we searched for diabetes treatment, and the list of results returning information about the articles that match our query. The RESTful API can be combined with a plethora of programming languages. We provide example clients in Java and Perl for the SOAP web service. If, however, you wish to use another client, for example Python, which is commonly used in bioinformatics, you can do so using the same methods and parameters that we show here for the browser interaction. Let's see what it looks like. This is an example of querying the Europe PMC database using the RESTful web service with a Python client. It has some elements that are similar to the web request we constructed before. It uses the search module. It has the same query, diabetes treatment. And if we run this client, we will get the list of results, which looks like this. Again, it contains similar elements: hit count, our query, and the list of results. Whether you're using the browser access or a specific client, it brings back the same list of papers, which is what we would expect. Let's look at another example of programmatic access to data in Europe PMC. A popular task is retrieving publications that have cited a particular paper. If you want to access papers citing your publication of interest, you can do so with Europe PMC web services. Let's say you're interested in this paper on sex determination in fish. You can see it has been actively cited, judging from a citation graph. And you want to retrieve all publications that have referred to this work. In this case, you will use the citations module and construct your URL by providing two obligatory parameters: source and publication ID. Those parameters are necessary to specify the publication for which you wish to retrieve the citations list. How do you find those parameters? The source, or SRC, is a three-letter code for the resource that has provided the data. There are several data sources included in Europe PMC. MED, or MED, denominates biomedical citations from PubMed and Medline. PMC, for PubMed Central, is the source for full-text publications. Biomedical patents are provided by the European Patent Office, encoded as PAT. There are several more sources for abstracts available in Europe PMC. Those include Agricola database for agricultural literature citations and Chinese biological abstracts, AGR and CBA, respectively. You can also find PhD theses available via the Ethos service. A full list of data sources can be found in the web service description on the website or in the web service reference guide. I provide the download link on the slide. If you would like to find the SRC and publication ID for a specific paper, you can do so either using the web service search module or on the live site using the web search interface of the europepmc.org. We have highlighted the SRC and ID parameters for you on this slide. As you can see from the source code, this abstract comes from the Agricola database. Note that all the full-text articles in Europe PMC come from PubMed Central, and most have a corresponding PubMed abstract record. Each full-text article, therefore, has a unique PMC ID, and most have a corresponding PubMed ID, or PMID. In these cases, the PMC ID and the PMID can be used interchangeably to retrieve the same results. So, for example, the list of citing articles returned in response to a PMC ID request will be the same for the corresponding PMID. However, only a fraction of PubMed abstracts have a corresponding Europe PMC full-text article available, and therefore will have a PMID but not PMC ID. If an article doesn't have a PMC ID, like an Agricola record in this example, there will be no corresponding full-text article. Knowing the SRC and the unique publication ID, we can now go back to our URL, enter the parameters before the module, and get the results. As you can see, it is very similar to our previous example. We again see the total number of hits, the request we provided, which in this case is a specific publication defined by the ID and the source, and the resulting list of papers that have cited this record. Now that we have seen a couple of examples of RESTful requests, let's talk more about the outputs of this service and how you can tailor it to your needs. First and foremost, you can choose the format in which your results are provided. XML is the default option. If you do not specify the format parameter, your results will be in XML. XML is the format most commonly used for archiving, so if you need to import your results into another database, this is probably the right format for you. XML provides two advantages as a data representation language. It is text-based and position-independent. Unfortunately, XML is not well suited to data interchange, and it doesn't match the data model of most programming languages. The disadvantages of XML are compensated by the benefits of interoperability and openness, but if you're planning to import the data into a web application, you might want to recall a JSON response. If you're using the search module, there's one more format available to you, and that is the Dublin Core format. The Dublin Core schema is a small set of metadata terms used to describe web resources, as well as physical resources such as books or CDs, and objects like artwork. Dublin Core may be expressed in plain text, HTML, XML, and RDF. In Europe PMC web service, the Dublin Core format comes within an RDF XML wrapper. Dublin Core metadata may be used for multiple purposes, from simple resource description to combining metadata vocabularies. Another important parameter that defines what type of data you receive is the result type parameter. The result type can either be light, core, or ID list, with light being the default option. Light returns key metadata for the given search. It contains publication ID and source, DOI, title, a list of authors, journal information, citation count, and so on. Core returns full metadata for a given publication, including abstract text, full text link, detailed author information like affiliations, keywords, funding information, etc. Finally, ID list returns only a list of IDs and sources for the given search terms. If you only want a list of publications associated with your query, this is the most minimalistic result type. Note that this parameter determines the fields returned by XML and JSON formats, but it has no effect on the Dublin Core format. When you retrieve the list of results, they are arranged in pages with several results displayed on the page. To navigate between pages, use the cursor mark. Its function is similar to a bookmark. The cursor mark specifies the results page that comes after the one you're currently viewing. The first page appears as the default, and to recall the next page, just copy-paste the next cursor mark parameter found at the top of your results list for a specific query. With this, it is important to keep in mind that there is another parameter that specifies the number of articles retrieved for every page. It is the page size parameter. The default value is 25. If you wish to go for more, you should remember that the maximum number of results per page is 1000. One more important thing to keep in mind is that you can sort your results depending on your needs. The default sorting of the web service output is by relevance, with the most relevant results appearing first. However, you can also sort your search results by specifying the sort field. You can choose to sort by publication date, for example, to see the most recent publications, by citation counts, to retrieve the most cited works, or by the first author name in case you're interested to see which researchers have published on a particular topic. After specifying the sort field, you also need to pick ascending or descending sort order. Therefore, you can combine these different parameters for the search module to manipulate the results to suit your task. It gives you some flexibility. So once again, we come back to the slide with results from our initial query for diabetes treatment. And you can see here that all of the output parameters, even those that we did not specify and were set to default, are shown here just below your query. The result type, the cursor mark, the page size, and the sort order. If you look closely, there's one more parameter mentioned here, synonym, and I'd like to focus on it in more detail in the next section. we would just like to spend a couple of minutes on some tips and suggestions that we think can help you when conducting a literature search. For instance, we can refine our search to get an exact match for the combination of the keywords we used. To do so, we need to enclose our query in quotation marks. This will eliminate any entries that only mention one of the search terms from our results. It makes our search more stringent, but also more precise. For example, here, when we search for mouse P53, we will only get results that have both words separated by space in the same sentence. If the paper mentions mouse in the methods section and P53 in the introduction, it will not be included in our search results. If, on the other hand, we would like to conduct a more broad search, we can expand our query by including synonyms, using MESH or medical subject headings, terminology, and the UniProt synonyms list. The synonym search is off by default, and you can change that by setting the synonyms parameter to true or yes. In our search scenario, we will retrieve publications that mention aspirin as well as salicylic acid as a synonym. If you would like to restrict your search to specific fields, for example, to search only in paper abstracts, you can use the field parameter. As you are entering your query, type the field parameter, in this case, abstract, followed by a colon preceding the keyword. If your query consists of multiple keywords, for example, malaria treatment, or malaria plasmodium falciparum, enclose them in double quotes to specify all keywords that should be searched against the abstract field. For more available search fields, refer to the Web Service Reference Guide. I provide a link here to download the PDF. You can also use the Fields module to see a full list of our indexed search fields, along with the datasets they can be used for. As you can see, there are further parameters that you can specify to fine-tune the results to your specific needs. We encourage you to explore them by following the link at the bottom of this slide. Another point to cover is the author search. Sometimes, rather than searching for a topic, you might want to focus on the work of a particular researcher. To find an author by name, use the author field. You can use both surname and first name or initials for your search. To find most cited or most recent papers from this author, you can use the sort function mentioned earlier. Authors with common names can be difficult to distinguish. To match the author exactly, you can use their ORCID, which we have mentioned in the beginning of this webinar. ORCID is a unique digital researcher identifier that helps to disambiguate scientific authors. For authors with an ORCID record, you can use their ID instead of the name to search for publications. To find the ORCID of an author, search for the researcher by name on the orchid.org website. To construct the URL, use the search module with an author ID field and type in the ORCID. To find papers with an associated ORCID, type the word ORCID in the author ID _ type field. This will bring the list of papers that have been claimed by at least one author with an ORCID record. On europemc.org, you can also see the list of authors with ORCIDs who have claimed the article of interest under the publication abstract. With this, we're coming closer to the end of this webinar. We have covered only a fraction of what you can do using Europe PMC. For more information, you can explore related resources that we provide on the website. There is detailed information about the Europe PMC RESTful web service to be found under europemc.org/RESTful web service. For a structured description of a RESTful web API, you can visit the link to the RESTful WADL, Web Application Description Language. Finally, there is also a detailed, developer-friendly web service guide, which lists the modular methods available together with their parameters and responses. I have provided the link to it on multiple slides. If you would like to keep up with the news and releases for Europe PMC web services, we encourage you to sign up for our Google group, where you can get information and ask questions about the web services. Alternatively, you can also leave your email address as a point of contact in the email parameter of the response modules. However, if you do not find the answer to your question on the website, or if you're stuck in any way, we have an active help and support team. The best way to contact us is through the Google group I mentioned. For any questions related to Europe PMC, not only developer-related questions, you can contact the help desk at europepmc.org. We're now at the end of this webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We will be answering your questions shortly. If you would like to go back and revisit this webinar, it will be available on the EMBL-EBI Train Online website. And please do not forget to check the Train Online site for the full list of upcoming webinars on programmatic access to EBI resources. Next in the list is Ensemble on the 6th of June. Thank you all for your attention. If you do come up with some more questions, please send them our way, either via the Google group or via the help desk. And we hope to see you at the next webinar, which will be with Ensemble on the 6th of June.